To duel or not to duel? That is never the question. Let's duel! When you're a duelist, every move could be your last. What's your strategy?
Yu-Gi-Oh is a franchise that was a massive part of my childhood. I'm not too sure when I became obsessed with the show. It kind of feels like I and everybody else in school started watching and playing overnight. I played the card game for many years and spent way too many hours dueling. I also watched the show on weekday mornings all the way up to about the middle or end of Yu-Gi-Oh GX, which around that time I was going into high school and all of a sudden I was way too cool for Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh series actually started off as a manga, both written and illustrated by Kazuki Takahashi. What I was surprised to learn a few years ago is that the manga focuses on a wide variety of different games, whereas the show mainly focuses on the Duel Monsters card game. However, eventually in the manga, Duel Monsters became the most prevalent game, which ended up translating to the anime. There was also a different Yu-Gi-Oh anime before Duel Monsters came along. The adaptation was only 27 episodes long and never left Japan, however they did release a theatrical film. The first season of Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters contains 49 episodes. The season made its debut on April 18, 2000 in Japan and finished almost a year later on April 3, 2001, while in America it premiered on September 29, 2001 and aired until October 5, 2002. Yu-Gi-Oh was massive for me when growing up, so let's see if season 1 is as good as I thought it was back then. For those of you who've lived under a rock for the past 17 years, I'll give you the Cliff Notes summary of what this show is about. Yu-Gi-Oh is a show focused on a card game and follows Yugi Moto, a talented duelist who owns a mysterious magical item called the Millennium Puzzle. Yugi is joined by his friends Joey, Taya, and Tristan throughout the series. The very first episode actually does a really good job at teaching you about the game so you're not completely lost. It manages to teach you the rules adequately, even for a show that's often making up the rules as it goes along. In this first episode we also meet Seto Kaiba, who serves as Yugi's arch-rival. Kaiba is the perfect antagonist as he's a rich, privileged, arrogant dickhead who thinks he's too talented for everyone else. He's so easy to hate, but he doesn't remain a one-dimensional antagonist as later on in the season far more depth is added to the character. However, the actual villain of the season is Maximilian Pegasus. Pegasus is the creator of Duel Monsters and possesses a Millennium item of his own, the Millennium Eye. Pegasus holds a tournament on his island, hoping to lure other owners of Millennium items so he can take them for his own use. There's so much mystery and intrigue shrouding Pegasus early on, and I really enjoy how he sort of looms as a super boss for whoever wins the tournament. Just like Kaiba, Pegasus is easy to hate too. In his initial duel with Yugi at the start of the season, we learn about his ability to see into his opponent's minds, which gives him a way too unfair advantage. At the end of the duel, he takes Yugi's grandpa's soul, forcing Yugi to enter the tournament to get him back. While Pegasus is basically a supervillain and wouldn't seem out of place as the antagonist in a superhero movie, they managed to make him somewhat sympathetic here. As the tournament progresses, we learn more about his motivations and reasons behind what he's doing, which makes you feel for him. The things he's doing are completely wrong, but you can understand why he's so desperate when the show delves deeper into his backstory. Aside from the main plot revolving around Yugi, Kaiba, and Pegasus, there's also a side plot involving Joey. When the season starts, Joey has absolutely no idea how to duel, but Yugi and his grandpa start teaching him. We then find out that Joey has a sister who doesn't live with him anymore, due to his parents getting divorced. The real kicker is that his sister has lived her whole life with deteriorating eyesight, and it's coming to the point where she'll go blind if she can't afford a very expensive surgery. This is the catalyst for Joey joining the tournament, as there's a $3 million prize for the winner. Both of the side plots put into play here are great. Firstly, you get to see Joey go from complete novice to competent duelist by the end of the tournament. Each duel he has, you can see him slowly growing, and they increase his skill level at a believable pace, rather than have him be an absolute master right off the bat. Then secondly, having Joey dueling purely because he wants to help his sister is great, as each duel is a big deal to him because he doesn't want to let his sister down. Although, a lot of the tension is lost when you realise that Yugi doesn't have to win to free his grandpa, and Joey doesn't have to win to get the prize money. They literally just need one of them to win to achieve both those things, so the championship duel between Yugi and Joey seems a little overly dramatic, as at this point they're basically a shoo-in to get what they need. Speaking of being overly dramatic, this whole series is built on being overly dramatic. This aspect definitely isn't for everyone and would likely turn a lot of people off. However, I do enjoy how dramatic everything is despite them basically just playing a card game. It adds weight and meaning to what would otherwise be a very boring and basic concept. I'm a big fan of the tournament concept too. On the island, it's basically a free-for-all first, with duelists needing to beat opponents to obtain star chips. Once you get 10 star chips, you gain entrance to Pegasus's castle, and a more traditional tournament takes place. The star chips concept makes for some interesting posturing between the duelists, with some people being incredibly ambitious with how many chips they put on the line. I think the most disappointing part of the tournament is how they handle the character Weevil. Weevil is a top duelist, but instantly becomes a villain as he throws Yugi's rare Exodia cards overboard on the boat to the island. It becomes obvious that the show is going to build up to Yugi getting revenge on him, and you want to see him get his ass kicked. However, the payoff for this storyline comes only a few episodes later, as Weevil is the first person Yugi duels. I would have liked to see this strung out for longer, to really build some suspense for their duel. Instead, Weevil is sent packing from the island quicker than it took for him to get there.
Fellow duelists, behold the next evolution of dueling, the Duel Disc. Who will accept this challenge?
It's the official Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Disc. With everything you need to duel with the official Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. Now you can activate your strongest magic cards and summon your most powerful monsters in a whole new way. Dueling will never be the same. Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Disc accessory. Official trading cards not included.
The first season of Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters isn't without its fair share of problems. One of the worst parts is how corny and cheesy it can get at times. For the most part, it actually does a good job staying away from this, but then falls into some extremely corny moments. The worst offenders are things like Yugi's grandpa handing him cards after he'd lost to Kaiba, and when Taya draws some stupid friendship symbol on their hands in magic marker. These moments are actually painful to watch. Speaking of Taya, god do I really hate her character. Her and Tristan really only serve the purpose of being cheerleaders and nothing else, as neither of them have any idea how to play Duel Monsters. Tristan is bearable because he mainly sticks to this, but the writers decided to try and give Taya a greater purpose. She tries to be some kind of voice of reason and morals, but she comes off as so damn preachy and just annoying. One of my biggest grievances with the show is that they don't follow the rules of the actual card game, and rather the rules of the manga. The actual real-life card game's rules are like 1,000,000 times better, so as someone who grew up playing the proper game, it's annoying to see these altered rules. Nobody has to sacrifice cards for high-powered monsters, cards just get played at random, and there's a Pokemon-style type system that completely ignores attack points at times. A lot of the time it just feels like the rules are being made up as they go along, and it makes following some of the duels way too hard. I had to constantly remind myself they're playing with different rules, particularly when a player is able to attack life points directly. I have to stop and remember, no, you can't do that in these rules. Luckily, from what I've read, the next season introduces the rules of the actual card game, which will only increase my enjoyment of the show even further. Another thing that caused a lot of confusion for me is Yugi's transformation during duels due to the Millennium Puzzle. When Yugi duels, we clearly see him become a new person, as he grows like 4 feet and has a different voice. However, nobody even notices a thing until about halfway through the season, where Taya finally goes, he suddenly seems different. At this point I was confused as hell, so I went to Google and it turns out that the transformation is mostly there for the viewers. Yugi doesn't actually grow, he's just supposed to increase in confidence, with the physical transformation being a visual reference for the audience. This is pretty damn confusing though. It's like a much sloppier version of the Harry Potter films having characters keep their voice when they use Polyjuice potions, so the audience still knows who's who. I think it would have been way more effective if they only altered his voice, as the characters are really speculating whether some kind of weird transformation or something is going on, but it looks really stupid to the viewer as he's clearly grown and we can see that he's a different guy. On a more minor note, I think the season drags on a little bit. The actual tournament arc wraps up at like episode 40, and then we get a couple of shorter arcs, including the Dungeon Dice Monster arc. I found these extra episodes a little annoying and not really necessary. They mostly serve a purpose, but they mostly also act as a filler, and are tacked on to the end of the season really to stretch it out. Also, the episodes are actually pretty damn short. After the intro and the recap, some episodes are only like 18 minutes long. It feels like in a number of episodes, time is wasted recapping what just happened, and it means some duels stretch out over more episodes than they really need to.
Your turn, Yugi.
Your move, Kaiba.
No, you go.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you go.
What's going on?
They're trying to figure out who makes the first move.
Didn't they flip a coin?
You
No.
go.
Why not?
You
They
go.
can't
You
decide
go.
who should flip it.
You go. You go.
You go.
You go.
You go.
You go.
You go.
You
Don't miss Yu-Gi-Oh! Monday through Friday at 4:30 right here on Kids WB.
Overall, I enjoyed the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. It's a fun adventure with some really high points and surprisingly well developed story threads. It does get held back, in my opinion, because of a few problems though. Not using the proper rules in this season is probably the biggest offender, while things like kicking out Weevil so early and Taya becoming insufferable add up to negatively impacting the experience. These issues were never bad enough to seriously affect my enjoyment though, and I can't wait to move on and review more seasons of the show.